So I do a lot of malware research, uh, site obsession. Most people go out and have fun, but I stay in the house and analyze malware. I've written a bunch of blog posts for my company on malware, uh, latest threats, APTs, stuff like that. So I hadn't touched Dridex before this, and Dridex is just this is the blog post. Everything's already written. Yeah, it makes life a lot easier when things are already written. So really, we're just going to go through this. There's some pretty pictures, and I can get into some other stuff also. So Dridex is just a banking malware, a banking Trojan. Pretty much just eavesdrops on whatever victims it attacks. So it'll follow kind of like internet traffic, start stealing personal information, usernames, passwords. With the Dridex ultimate goal is to steal bank account information. And so this little bad boy has been around for quite a while. As you can see, it was first discovered back in November 2014, targeting mostly customers from banking institutions, mostly over in Europe. Now, this has changed. It is still mostly over in Europe, but it has crawled its way toward the West, very slowly. So Dridex infection scheme really focuses on infecting small to mid-sized businesses versus just infecting individuals, because individuals, unless you're a billionaire, an individual billionaire, you don't tend to have a lot of money. And Dridex wants, billions and billions of dollars. So Dridex spreads mostly through phishing emails sent by attackers to their targets. So these emails will typically contain infected Microsoft Office file or files, and will usually almost 100% trick the user into opening the attachment. So one thing about this malware type is it doesn't spread on its own. So it's very reliant upon the victim. So the victim will actually initiate the initial infection by opening up the infected Microsoft Office file. So get into how this bad boy is infecting computers. So it's essentially creating a malicious macro inside of a Microsoft Office file. So Word doc, Excel, PowerPoint. Matt, you can add macros. So once the document is open, it'll trigger the macro, and that macro will actually download the main payload of the malware, which is the Trojan program itself. So from there, it'll install and run on the user's computer. Dridex doesn't use any security vulnerabilities. It just relies on good old-fashioned social engineering, tricking the user. That's all this is. It's all the user's fault at the end of the day, honestly. So the user has to initiate this infection. This infection will fail and be obsolete if the infected document is never opened, or if the notification from the macro requesting permissions is declined. Because starting in Microsoft Office 2007, I believe off the top of my head, they started to give a little warning at the top if there were macros inside of the file that asked you if you wanted to enable macros for this file. Don't enable macros in any file. Even if you know who it comes from. I know a lot of companies do use macros, but you're really putting yourself at risk, even from legitimate people. You never know. Insider threat's a huge problem too. So going into this more. So I was handed a sample of Dridex. Now this photo comes from SANS, but same concept. I just didn't want to bleep out fucking all my shit. So this is typically what a Dridex email will look like. It'll come from some fake name, some fake email. Usually spelling is not really an issue with these guys, with these teams doing this. And you have the XLS, the Excel file attached here. So commonly, the file names of the Dridex files will be something business related, since they are attacking small and mid-size level businesses. So shipping invoice, payment request, employment stuff, anything that you can think of that would get a business's attention. So when Dridex does this, it's just doing this as a target and the opening malicious copy. Nothing there. So this is a great infection chain photo from Micro. It just shows the life cycle of the Dridex malware. So we can see, like I've already said, it arrives as malware attachment spam. Most of the time, these don't even get flagged spam, honestly. They come right through, so they're using like legit ways to get this through without going into too much detail. So the macro gets detected, downloads the Dridex loader, downloads the Dridex worker, which is the .dll file on the system. The loader contains all the configuration files of the botnet network and that has the botnet network and the CNC details. All the stolen information gets sent to the CNC servers. Command and control is CNC, guys. So this is a document that I was given that was it had already been analyzed by SANS, but they threw it my way as I was doing this whole research, and I decided to tear it apart versus following anybody else's analysis on this. So this was opened up in Microsoft 2007. So we can see Microsoft actually has a security warning with macros have been disabled, and then there's a button here saying enable content. And this is what the file looked like to me. So this is just a bunch of jibber jabber. Typically, mostly, the Dridex malware will actually have something here that might be blocked out or like fuzzied. Blindfuzzy. So it'll all be cloudy here. So you need to enable content to see this. It could be words, it could be a fake statement of something that's going to trick the user into clicking enable content. Because once you click this enable content, it enables macros. And the macros are on an auto run scheme. So once you enable content, that'll automatically run the Dridex macro. Ta-da! Boom, boom, boom. And this is what Dridex looks like. I use PowerShell to get to this. I knew what I was searching for, so it wasn't hard for me to find. I am a fan of PowerShell because it is awesome. It's awesome for forensics. It's awesome for malware, infecting people maliciously. So this is base 64 encoded. This is what the macro looks like when it's been encoded. So I had to decode all this, deobfuscate, whatever, to get to the next steps. So once it's decoded, the data appeared as an active MIME object, which is just a zlib compressed file or information that starts at the 0x32 offset. So what happens after that is it's decompressed to a standard OLE file, within the VBA macro project, so within the file. And decrypting the active bind container showed that it connected to a URL formatted like kind of like this. So I did this for safety's sake for the blog, but HTTP, obviously we know, some malicious IP address and all that. So from there, it'll download an executable file and save it in the temp directory, just using a random name suit. So it could be named anything. From there, the file is executed in the command prompt, which I did find it was visible during this analysis. It popped up really, really quick. I actually had to like stop and start all over and stop and start all over to actually catch it in a screenshot. It was so fast, but it pops up really quick and then goes away. So the file it downloads is written in C#, and it gets signed with a digital certificate. This one was issued to this email, so afet@mail.ua. And that file acts like a downloader for the Dridex malware, Trojan, whatever. So Dridex does this to increase its chances of payload delivery success. When the file is executed, the obfuscated file deobfuscates itself, and then it'll actually launch a second copy of itself, and then inject the deobfuscated code into the second process. The deobfuscated code no longer contains MSIL bytes, but 86 instruction sets instead. The new process that gets created contains additional encrypted sections in which configuration data is stored in XML format. Yay! In the data, there's also a list of command and control servers that the downloader will contact in order to download the rest of the Dridex payload, as we can see below. So this is what I got out of it. Obviously, X'd out a bunch of addresses, but this gets into the config file of the botnet, the Dridex botnet. So I haven't figured out what botnet equals 120. I can't remember if I cover it in here. I don't know if it's like a version number or something like that, but this is a CNC server list for Dridex, one of the many, because these change all the time. So this won't be the same tomorrow. Or yesterday or whenever. So Dridex will actually attempt to contact each of the servers in the config file, and then from there download the malicious DLL file. From there, the DLL is executed with the following command. So we can see the command here: run DLL 32, blah blah blah, download file, notifier in it. Once the DLL is executed, it will inject itself into the legitimate explorer.exe process. From there, it'll monitor all banking and browser activity, pretty much all browser activity, not even covering banking. It'll cover everything. Dridex works on any of the commonly used browsers on Windows. Oh, by the way, this only affects Windows so far that I found. So it'll affect Internet Explorer, Chrome, and Firefox. So those are the big three. After the malware starts running in Explorer exe, it will immediately add a firewall rule with the name Core Networking Multicast Listener Done ICMP version 4N or V4N, and this will allow the malware to contact the CNC servers in the XML configuration file. And then after that, after it's done creating the firewall rule, it will make another attempt to contact the CNC servers, and will send an encrypted XML file which contains its unique identifier build derived from the computer name, its version, some crazy public key, which is used to encrypt its communication with the CNC servers. So we have unique ID, botnet number, version number, system number, type. It's obvious once you deobfuscate everything, like it's a freaking botnet. So here's the public key to that. Really unique identifiers to this version of Dridex. For other versions, this will change. So in intercepting the communication with the server, we can see that there's different config files in which Dridex tries to update its list of CNC servers, and also a configuration file that contains commands regarding what and how to intercept in terms of targets. It also makes requests for additional modules, which we will see below. So not only does it create a standard kind of CNC server list, from there it makes requests to get more CNC recovered CNC server list. So if those CNC servers don't work or they're down or whatever, it'll then shift to one of these or possibly all of those. I wasn't able to determine that in my analysis. This is more of the configuration data. So it's unique ID, system, all that jazz, the IP, stuff like that. And this is a full list of modules that it can and will use during its execution. So we can see that. Dridex also downloads its main config file and stores it in the registry. So we can take a look at the registry, which I ended up finding. And there's ways to look and see changes in the registry as they happen. You guys can Google that if you're doing malware analysis. I doubt any of you will do that, but who knows? So it saves it in this registry. So this CLS ID is all random, and the value name is all random. So it would. This isn't. Yeah, this is from the Dridex that I have. I couldn't remember if I just put in random numbers or not. So this is an example of what it might look like, but just take note that if you are tracking down a botnet like this, that in Dridex this will be random. In Dridex this will be random. So this will change. It won't look the same. So the config file contains several different sections, which include a command section, which is any command to be ran by Dridex, including a kill list, so it'll kill processes, allows it to download files, etc., etc. A list of nodes, so the IP addresses of the CNC servers, settings. This section will contain the information regarding what websites to monitor so that Dridex can extract data from each of the target URLs. It's sophisticated. It's not a dumb botnet. So in the settings subsection of the config file, we can actually see different types of commands Dridex will use on the target. And these settings are generally target specific. So we have HTTP block. So this is to allow or deny access to web pages, form grabber, which web pages from which submitted data in a form will be extracted. So it'll pull out the information you're typing in. HTTP inject block, are just web pages Dridex will inject code into. HTTP shots is what data to grab and not grab from specified websites. Redirects, web page where the user will be redirected as well as the destination address. HTTP inject are web pages that Dridex will monitor in order to inject its code. So, wow. And then we have click shots, which is where it stores web pages where screenshots will be taken when the user performs a click. This is important because there's a bunch of banking websites there that you can use virtual keyboards and actually click in your user information versus typing it in, which mitigates keyloggers but doesn't mitigate something like Dridex, since it takes screenshots of the keys that are typed or clicked on those virtual keyboards. And then from there, Dridex will send all the data collected to the target, or from the target to the CNC servers. So everybody was panicky about Dridex, but actually found that Dridex is really, really easy to find, or easy for me to find, which means it should be easy for everybody to find, I guess. Because I do these things late, after hours, and I'm tired, and bleh. So if I can find it and I'm half awake, then someone who's fully awake, who probably has more experience in doing this, can find it. So it's really easy to find on a compromised machine, mainly because it does not set a persistence key in the registry. Whoa, that doesn't even make sense. Okay, yeah, so it doesn't set a persistence key in the registry, which would allow security analysts to easily identify it, but it is possible to see if the computer is infected by looking at other registry keys, like the one where Dridex stores its config data. So we looked at this earlier, the CLS ID, the random numbers, and then the random value name here. Those won't change, all the time. Every time you turn your computer on or off or whatever, they'll stay the same. So always have something to look for. So from there, Dridex will run its injected code to explorer.exe process, so a user can take a look through Task Manager and see a hefty, at least on my end it was hefty increase in resources used by the process. Also take note that explorer.exe process has absolutely no business connected to it. So this is also a way to detect the infection. Also take a look at your firewall rules that I mentioned earlier. The one that it creates, it stays, it doesn't go away or anything like that. Pretty much how you can mitigate the problem with Dridex. Keep your stuff up to date. Avoid opening attachments from senders you do not know personally, and try never to enable macros in a Microsoft Office document. For corporations, endpoint security is important. Continuous security monitoring, I can't even pronounce that, whatever. CSM solution to detect suspicious traffic. Deploy an enterprise managed mail gateway to filter, block, and quarantine suspicious messages. Stuff like that. The big key is to update your stuff and don't open attachments from people you don't know personally, and don't enable macros. I think that's all right. Yeah, that'll be it on Dridex. It's kind of a short and quick, but Dridex is changing every day. I've pulled new Dridex samples from the wild versus having them given to me. So there's CNCs. We can make a huge CNC list for Dridex because it changes so often. Working on taking down a bunch of these CNCs. So that's been rough, fun, whichever. It's not as bad as the neutrino exploit, where everything was obfuscated and then written in Russian and then obfuscated again. Not as bad as that, but Dridex is a handful. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know in the IRC. I'm always there. Yep, and that's it.